whatever technique you use or whatever step you're going to develop, you have planned something, or you would have analyzed it, you would have thought in some direction, okay, I'm going to do this, so this will end up in this. So you are entering with a belief. You need to trust it completely because you have analyzed enough already about the child and about the issue. So you need to completely trust the process of whatever you're going to involve, so that the cosmic energies will support whatever the result that you want. So the basic step for it is you will have to observe the child. Your child is unique. So you need to keenly observe the child. When you observe, you will be easily able to figure out certain patterns. Like, for example, the child might do a specific behavior after seeing a specific stimulus. For example, every time the child sees the mirror or something, or sees the tap open, the child might also want to use the restroom, or the child might want to brush his teeth, or the child might like to run around. So this is the pattern that the child has already having in him or her. So you need to observe this pattern. With this pattern, if you attune them to whatever you want or the behavior that is expected, it is little more easy to do. Like every time he sees water from the tap, he likes to brush. So when you want him to brush, you can actually train him by leaving the tap open. So what we are doing is, like, we are observing their patterns, and we are helping them easily acquire the behavior that is expected out of them. So first rule is for you to observe the child, and this observation will be a very keen observation, so that you connect with the child and connect with whatever they do. This is the first step or the primary step. And the next thing is, you are going to act as their frontal lobe. Like, you are going to do all the functions that the frontal lobe for the child will do of his brain. So what does the frontal lobe do? We are going to give them memories. We are going to give them commands. We are going to make them do, or we are going to give them the instructions of what should be done. So we are literally going to act like his frontal lobe. So from this, how we can easily or how we can incorporate behaviors in a shorter span. So some things that we need to do, the basic things that we need to do is spend time with them. So any activity or any behavior that we want to incorporate in them, we need to work along with them. So this is one primary thing that we need to keep in mind. So basically, um, we need to check how independent the child is, whether the child is completely dependent or completely independent or partially dependent. So with this, if we apply the strategies that we have, it will be very easy for us to incorporate behaviors in these children. So joint attention. This is one very helpful technique. This is where you attend to one thing along with your child. So if you're going to teach the child a concept, or if you're going to teach the child to see something or experience something, or conceptualizing something, you are going to do along with the child. You are going to attend the same thing along with the child. Say, for example, if the child says he wants water, you are also going to join along with the child to address his needs. So what happens is, if the child has attention seeking issues and the behavior is because of that, automatically the child gets satisfied. The child feels supported. The child feels attended to. The child feels validated. So joint attention is very, very helpful in the basic concept acquiring stages. And the next thing is, this is another major thing that you will have to keep in mind: imitation. The child loves to imitate whatever it is. They love to imitate the sounds of animals. They love to imitate what you're doing, verbally, non-verbally, anything. So in motor activities, You can help them like basic things, clap or wave their hands or say hi. All these things they will imitate from whatever you show. And also verbally, like the sounds of animals or the sounds of or the common words, or when you draw a circle they also want to draw something. So all these things they learn through imitation. So you need to be a role model for the child. Whatever you feel the child want to learn, you have to be the role model for it. It could be very simple or it could be even very complex. For example, if you want to teach the child how to invite a guest or how to offer food, whatever, or even if it's complex for the age or complex for the child, you will have to imitate it in steps. And when you trust the process, please trust it completely. Don't be skeptical or don't have doubts in between. So when you're teaching the child, they will learn in baby steps. We will have to be ready for it. We will have to be ready to contribute so much time and energy for the child and to invest your time for the child. And the next thing is when you're teaching the child about social skills, about maintaining eye contact or about interacting socially with people around, you need to role play. For example, if you want to teach the child to make friends or to share his toys or to invite a guest or to eat or a table manners, whatever you want to teach them, you will have to do a role play for them. So you can have situations even before the child is going to be in the actual scenario. For example, if you're going to take the child for a party, so even before the occasion happens, you can actually do a mini role play at home before that, so that the child gets at least to some extent used to what is going to really happen in the reality setting. So when the child is getting prepared, then the child will automatically find it easy to be in the reality setting. Comparatively, the outcome will be pretty more good or pretty more success. And for maintaining eye contact, if you want to develop eye contact in the child, you can play games. Like, say, for example, you leave a bubble in front of your eyes. What happens? The child tends to see the bubble. So the child gradually develops eye contact like this. And you can do a gesture. So whenever you do a gesture, the child will see your eyes or see your face or see the gesture that you're making. So what's happening? We are slowly helping the child for our expressions or our gestures. The next thing that the other behavior strategies that we need to understand is the main categories are reinforcements and punishments. But how you use it and when you use it makes the results very, very effective. Reinforcement. If you want to establish any behavior in the child, the strategy you will use is reinforcement. So this is to incorporate or establish appropriate behavior for the child. So reinforcement again divides into two different categories: positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is where you add something positive to the child, positive for the behavior that you want to establish in the child. And these rewards or these reinforcements need to be very, very uniquely designed for your child. For example, a chocolate could work for one particular child, but not for the other. The other child might expect some other thing, maybe taking him out or leaving him to play or watching TV, whatever. So each reinforcement has to be decided based on that particular child, their needs, their wants, their likes, as well. The reinforcement will be dependent on the behavior of the child. Whatever behavior they do at that particular time decides their reinforcement. So the parents have to be really cautious and need to really plan it out to give a reinforcement for the child. So the reinforcements need to be appropriate for the behavior. For example, if the child does something, if the child attempts to do something which has to be established in the child, so the child has initiated but not completely acquired the behavior. So give a reinforcement for the initiation. The reinforcement shouldn't be enough, which means if the reinforcement is enough for the child will not attempt completing the behavior, whatever is required. So when the child, say for example, if the child is learning to button a shirt, so when they attempt, give them some attention, give them some reinforcement, give them a reward so that they feel good about what they are doing. But the child has not accomplished learning the task. So the reinforcement need not be something very big so that the child feels completely satisfied and stops attempting for the behavior or attempting to learn to button his shirt. So make sure whatever reinforcement you give is appropriate for that particular behavior for the child. And it should be what the child likes or prefers. And the reinforcement should be effective. Effective means the child has to like it. You can't give something for all, like one particular gift for all children won't work. Each children vary, each child varies, right? So you have to design it very specifically for the child so that whatever behavior is established very effectively. And the child should feel satisfied with your reinforcement. Like they should feel good. Okay, I've done this and I'm getting this. So next time if I'm going to repeat or next time if I'm going to do more, then I'm going to get some more reinforcement of this kind. So they should feel that satisfaction. The other major component is the immediacy. Whatever reinforcement you give, it should be soon after the behavior is demonstrated. Most often we miss in this part. We reinforce the child, but at a very later stage, where the child even forgets for what they are being reinforced for. So you need to be really immediate, like soon after the behavior is done, there should be the reinforcement. And the reinforcement should be contingent. So all these are positive reinforcements. Similarly, there is also negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is again adding positive to the child's life, but by removing a negative from what they already have. Say, for example, if the child is being punished, so there is already a negative in the child, negative that is being assigned to the child, or they are prevented from watching television, or they are prevented from playing with their friends. So already they have a negative in their schedule. So when we want to reinforce, if we just let the child play, which means we are removing the punishment of the child being alone, the time out. So when we remove the negative, automatically the child gets to be gets to have a reinforcer for their activity. So what happens is automatically this will again establish the appropriate behavior. Another example could be if I have a headache and if I'm planning to if I'm getting very drained because of that, and if I take a medicine, my headache gets removed. So what's happening is I'm not adding anything positive, but I'm removing the negative that is present in me. So what happens is automatically I feel positive about what has happened. So this is called negative reinforcement, where we remove the negative and automatically make it the positive. The next thing is punishment. Punishment is like the other end of the reinforcement. So for punishing, there is some basic rules with how you can punish them. Only that will make the results effective. So punishment can be given only if you want to eliminate a particular behavior. Sometimes we misuse or say, for example, once they finish the food properly and we say every time you have to do this or in a very harsh tone. So what happens is next time they relapse, they go back to something something which is not healthy. So punishments need to be given only for behaviors that you want to eliminate in the particular child. So for punishment, the punishment has to be, when you're punishing the particular behavior, alternate behavior has to be reinforced. Most often we would see parents saying, don't do this, don't do that, but they never say what the child has to do. We focus so much attention on what the child is not supposed to do, and we forget what the child has done, which is like appropriate. So what we need to do is, when we punish the child for a particular behavior, make sure you reinforce the alternate behavior. Even if the child does it after the punishment. Say, for example, if you stop the child from uh, hitting his head or something like that, and if the child just remains quiet for 1 or 2 minutes, please start appreciating or reinforcing. When you reinforce, automatically the child stops the other behavior, which has to be eliminated. And similar, just like the reinforcement, punishment has to be immediate, soon after the behavior is displayed, not after a while, because the child tends to forget for what they are being punished or reinforced for. And the punishment has to be appropriate, just like the reinforcement. We can't say, I hate you for a behavior problem. So that is like rejecting the child as a whole. We are rejecting the child's being, so that can't be done. Or hitting the child. All these things are rejecting the child itself. We are not planning for that, right? So we need to modify, or we need to punish only for the behavior. If the child does something, punish them for the behavior. And you need to, the other major component that we need, that we forget while punishing the child, is we don't inform them about the punishment. Actually, children learn so many things just by the non-verbal sense, and they make sense in their own way. They don't really think up to what we think, or it's just that they can't think of other perspectives predominantly, at least until they reach a point. So what happens is, say for example, when they come near a fire or something like that, what parents do, we push them away. Like, say for example, they come inside the kitchen, what we do, we push them away. So when we push, what gets into their head? What are they assuming, or what are they understanding from our push? They think that we are throwing them away from our life. Actually, it's not true. What was the actual intention? There is fire, and you don't want the child to harm himself, so you're pushing the child away. But the child makes sense in his or her own way. Just an example, if you keep calling me and I don't take the call, we give 101 interpretations ourselves. We don't really think of what the other person is undergoing, or we don't really have that perspective, right? Just like that, just like how we think, the children also make their own understandings. They don't really look at our perspectives. So when especially this happens while punishment, even while reinforcement, it is a little less, but while punishment, this is very, very critical. So you need to inform them about the punishment. You need to make them understand why they are being punished and why this punishment is assigned to them. You are pushing them away because you're giving them a timeout, because that explanation has to reach them. Because only if they get this explanation, they will understand they are being given a punishment for the behavior and not for them. So this has to be done very mindfully. And make sure you don't pair up reinforcement for the behavior that you are punishing. Sometimes this happens. We say, I will never talk to you. We say that as a punishment, and after 2-3 minutes, we talk. So what happens? The child gets confused. Okay, so my parent will not talk to me for a while after this behavior, but after that, they will talk. They'll mellow down, they'll come down, they'll talk to me and hug me. So what's happening? The child is getting dual messages and dual contradicting messages, two different messages, not same ones also. So what happens? The child gets confused and the child tends to repeat the behavior, which has to be eliminated. Just like reinforcement, punishment also is of two types. Punishment by application is one, and punishment by withdrawal is one. So when you apply a punishment, we add something negative for the child. We ask them not to mingle with their friends, we ask them not to sit in front of TV, or we don't give them the play material, or we don't stay with them, we don't talk to them, we do something like this. So what is happening? We are adding something negative or something aversive. Say for example, a pill inside their mouth to irritate them, or something bitter so that they feel irritated next time when they repeat the behavior. So all these things are adding something negative for the child. This is punishment by application. On the other end, punishment by withdrawal. So here we remove something positive from them. They would already have a toy, and when they mess, we remove the toy from them. Or we don't let them play because they didn't clean the place. They have left it, they had made it a mess and they don't tidy it up. So we don't give the toys next time. So what happens? We are removing something positive. We need not add something negative. Just by removing positive, automatically the scenario became negative for the child, and the child wants to change the behavior. Out of all this, parents have to be really clear, and they should make it a point. The promises have to be very, very clear, and it should be permanent. If you say, I will not talk to you, which means you will not talk to them. So please don't make such promises. When you're punishing the child, give them the punishment that you can administer, that will make them learn, that will make them change the behavior. And don't be very harsh, because parents will not be able to last on that harshness, and the child again will get confused and repeat the same patterns. The other technique through which you can incorporate a behavior in a child is through shaping. Shaping is where you reinforce the successive approximations. So when you're teaching something, the child might not be able to do completely. Say, for example, when you're teaching your child about table manners, about not spilling the food outside the plate, even in the first attempt, the child will not be able to do it with 100% success. But what most parents do, they will still find faults. They'll say, see, I told you, no, still you have spilled some food. Still you have done this. Still you have done that. So instead of that, the child has attempted doing something which is appropriate. So start reinforcing them for that. You can give small reinforcements. This will give them the direction. Once they start moving in the direction, and once they start getting reinforcements, the child feels motivated enough to reach the goal. If we don't do that, what the child feels, okay, anyways, my mother's going to scold or my father's going to yell at me. So let me be the negative and let me enjoy. Why should I try doing something positive? Often what happens is, when a slow learner is trying to learn, the school or the parents always admire the rank holders. We don't really appreciate the trivial efforts that the child is making. So when the child is trying to learn, the child might be a student who fails in the exams, and when they make attempts and they get little more marks, but still they couldn't manage to pass. What happened? We again criticize. We don't really see the efforts that they have invested. So continuously doing like this, what happens? The student decides to remain as a slow learner and get attention. Why should I try becoming good and try make myself? Why am I harsh on myself? Rather, if I'm just a slow learner, I get so much of attention, I get so much of sympathy from people, so they will start enjoying whatever they are. So when you want the child to change, you have to observe the child very keenly. Only with that you will be able to notice minute differences. And for the minute differences, if you reinforce, they start moving in the direction at a faster pace. and reach the goal of whatever behavior is required of them. So this is called shaping. And the next technique is the chaining. Chaining is like where you build small rounds and you cling it all together. You connect it all together. So this is another technique. So for this technique, you will have to break the complex behavior into small steps and establish one behavior at a time. For example, when you want to give 3 or 4 commands for the child, on the first time it doesn't happen. So you give one command. So after the child does, you give the second command, third command, and then the fourth, and finally the entire task gets done by the child. So this is called chaining. This usually takes place in higher order learning when you want to teach them a very complex behavior, or when you want to teach them a sequence of behaviors rather than just one. So this could be another useful technique for them to learn. So the more you dedicate yourself, the more you see the success in the child. So it is just directly proportionate. If the child is not reciprocating, which means the parents' efforts are not enough or a different intervention is required. It is just that. It is not that the child cannot learn. You need to teach the child in a way that the child learns. That's all. So you need to modify the technique. When a teacher finds that the students are not understanding the concepts that she teaches, she has to modify her style. That is all it is. So when your child is not able to understand, please modify your style. That is all. With that you will see the results. That is why you need to develop individual and unique strategies that will be apt for your child alone. It cannot be applied for everyone. A same reinforcer cannot be a reinforcement for all children in a particular age group. It varies across individuals. So you need to mindfully plan the technique and then implement. So even when you're not responding for a child's behavior, it has to be at different levels. Like once the child does a particular behavior and you don't respond at all, that will reduce the behavior. And next time, if the child repeats, you do respond, but at a lesser level. And finally, again, if the child repeats the behavior, you have to respond in a way that is incompatible for the child, which means you cannot smile, you cannot laugh and cry at the same time. Both doesn't go hand in hand. And you cannot have sympathy and feel pride at the same time. Both both are incompatible. Similarly, when the child cries or when the child throws tantrums, what is incompatible for your child? Say, for example, if you have fun talking to someone, or you just go out, or you have fun on your own, the child feels it is incompatible. The child just cannot tolerate it because the child is doing for getting your attention. So that doesn't happen. That is an incompatible way of responding for the child. So you need to keep varying your levels of your reinforcement, punishments, whatever you do. And the final trick, I could say, not a strategy, but a final trick in using reinforcements and punishments is the interval and the ratio. Initially, when you establish a behavior in the child, your interval has to be continuous, which means every time the child does a behavior, you will have to reinforce or you have to punish. But after a point, you can make it variable, which means after second trial or third trial, you reinforce them. After third trial or fourth trial, you punish them, but in a very severe manner. So what happens? The child doesn't know when they will be punished or when they will be appreciated. So they will always prefer to be on the safer side. For example, if we work for a company and we don't know when we get our salary, what happens? Our performance always stays high because we don't know when we will get the hike. So similarly, first it has to be continuous, then it has to be varied. And this is in interval. And then similarly in ratio, the amount of reinforcement or punishment that you give. In the beginning or when establishing a behavior also, it has to be fixed. which means every time the child does this behavior, I give him one chocolate or one fruit. I take him out or I let him play once. I let him play for half an hour. So it is fixed. But after a point, it will vary. Sometimes you might give them 2 hours of play, sometimes you won't give them, sometimes you let them alone or you let them have fun, or sometimes you let them mess the house. So it varies. They really get confused. First, they will establish the behavior thinking every time they will get. But after a point, they don't know when they will get. So they will always want to remain on the safer side and get the goal behavior established or eliminated. So I think I have done justice to some extent of whatever my role was. You need to tell me.
Thank
I'm
you.
done with it.